Good morning, everyone. When we were bar mitzvah boys, we always wanted to know what's the name of our Torah portion and how many verses are there in our Torah portion. Well, the way to know how many verses there are in any Torah portion is just look at the very end of the Parsha, and you will find in small print the number of verses in that Torah portion. But not only that, after it tells you how many verses there are, it gives you a word, a code word, a mnemonic to remember how many verses there are. Because in Hebrew, every letter has a numerical value. So by adding up the letters of the word, you could remember how many verses there are in that Torah portion. Well, this week's Torah portion is Tzav, which means command, like from the word mitzvah, commandment. And it's the very unique Torah portion, because it's the only Torah portion where the mnemonic to remember how many verses there are is the same as the name of the Torah portion. At the end of the Parsha it says there are 96 verses, and the way to remember it is the name of the Torah portion, Tzav, because Tzadik equals 90 and Vav equals 6, 96. But there's one problem, and that is that there are actually 97 verses in this week's Torah portion. So how could it say there are 96? And the way to remember it is the word Tzav, which equals 96. And perhaps the lesson here is that when it comes to doing commandments, mitzvot, there's two ways to do it. You could either do it like a burden, like an obligation, and then you do the minimum. You only follow the letter of the law. But if you do the commandments with love, then you go above and beyond the letter of the law. Then you follow the spirit of the law. Because when you do something with love, you don't measure, you just give with love, with joy, with pleasure. You don't make calculations, because you don't look at what you're expected to do or what the person deserves, but you just give out of goodness and generosity, and then you go above the letter of the law. And therefore, there are 96 verses to Tzav, but they're actually 97, because in order to do 96, you have to do 97. You have to go above the letter of the law. This past Thursday night, there was a protest, as there have been many, against the judicial reform in Tel Aviv. But the thousands of protesters decided they would march into Bnei Brak, a religious community next door, neighboring, and protest in Bnei Brak. And when the residents of Bnei Brak heard that thousands of protesters was coming from Tel Aviv, instead of organizing a counter-protest, this is what they did. They set up tables laden with food and drink. They put up big signs, "Welcome to our brothers and sisters from Tel Aviv." They put up sound speakers blaring Jewish joyous music. And then they prepared tables with flowers, and they even prepared bowls of big pots of cholent. And when the protesters came, they started to serve them food and drink and hand them flowers. And they even gave them hot bowls of cholent. And the protesters, who are mostly secular Israelis from Tel Aviv, started to embrace the religious Jews and started to thank them, and they started to smile, and there was this warmth of brotherhood and sisterhood. But then something beautiful happened that was captured on video. There was this secular Jew. He looked like he's in his 60s. He was protesting with a big Israeli flag around his shoulders, tied in the front over his chest. And he was wearing his motorcycle helmet, because he was afraid they would throw things at him, maybe eggs, so he was wearing a helmet. And suddenly, the music starts to play the song, Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharet Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim. And you see this Israeli Jew start taking off his helmet, and he starts to close his eyes and sing and sway to the song of Shalom Aleichem as he sings along. Suddenly tears start coming down his cheeks, and he starts wiping off his tears as he's singing the song. And when he finished, he was asked, "What happened? Why did you get so emotional?" And he said, "I haven't heard that song for 40 or 50 years. I haven't heard it since my childhood. The last time I had Shabbat dinner with my parents. And it took me back to the Shabbos table and my father singing this song. And I had memories of my father, and I thought about his love for the Jewish people and his love for Israel. I was thinking how embarrassed he would be to see me here today. And that's why I started to cry. Jewish people are one family. And when we act out of love to one another, and when we respond to God's commandments with love, we unite. Because we don't just want to do what is asked of us, but we want to bring our Father in heaven and our father and mothers and our ancestors here in this world joy and pride from the actions that we take. Tzav, go above, act out of love. Have a wonderful day.